Hi everyone, I'm Carly Spell, and welcome to the first of our Dark Matters Introduces interviews, which aims not only to introduce the new collaborative Dark Matters network, but to present and explore the inner psyche, talents, passions, and skill sets of our amazing space holders within the platform. So today I have the super delicious, super cosmic Felix Hyde with me. Felix is a quantum energy healer and holographic energy structurer who utilizes his clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient abilities to basically locate stagnation within us, within our holographic fields through universal time space. He uses alchemy, light therapy, and light language for the deliverance of healing. We're super excited not only to have Felix here with us today to kickstart off the build up to the spring launch of our network, and but yeah, just to have a good chat with us and find more about what he does and who he is. So, Felix, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Awesome. So, Felix, I've had a few sessions with you myself, and it
Hmm.
absolutely boggles my mind what you do. Your ability to kind of connect and pull from the quantum field and
Hmm.
regenerate us through what you would call the phantom matrix, as
Hmm.
we kind of deep dive, very deeply here at Dark Matters, but also to, as you would say, to heal the way showers and to show the way in that
Hmm.
regard. So you talk about updating and the resurrection of our light bodies that have been hijacked
Hmm.
from, as we know, this kind of Orion group Anunnaki hybridization of our source code and our DNA, which is what we can kind of see going on out the window at the moment.
Hmm.
And then obviously we know it's about the inner work and healing these core wounds, not just from this lifetime, but obviously from our past lifetimes.
Hmm.
So I find it absolutely fascinating, and the work that you do, and there's so much more to discuss, and hopefully in the next hour
Hmm.
we'll dig into it a little bit more. So, but
Yeah.
can you tell us a little bit? It'll come far better from you. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do, and I suppose why you do it?
Okay, that's a really good question because every day I kind of come into patches where I don't know what I do, but then I discover new things within that. So it's kind of um when I primarily I had to heal myself really. I've come from addiction, I've come from mental health issues, and um being very, very scattered, essentially. And through that development as I was growing up, I then hit a point of a dark night of the soul, ended up in hospital, and then it was time for me to kind of slow down and hit the brakes and do the healing work. So it was from there I started to learn how to heal myself. I didn't have any money. Um, I didn't really trust anyone, so I just kind of felt the flow to meditate. And it was from that I then started to kind of come into an observation state and learn how to kind of observe my own energy, observe my own issues, which then aided in a rapid transformation and growth over the space. I mean, I'm going into my sixth year now of from Dark Night of the Soul to where I am today. Um, and it's through those 6 years, it's kind of evolved and became its own kind of thing, where I've learned how to kind of heal myself, essentially. So through that, I've then been able to kind of step out of my third dimensional design job and then move into my fifth dimensional healing role or whatever dimension, because it's multi-dimensional really. My divine mission, which is within the divine blueprint. Um, and what I really want to do is get people to realize that they've all got this power within themselves, no matter who they are, where they come from. Everybody has got the power to bioregenesis. Everyone's got the power to read their own fields. Everybody's got the power within them. And I want them to recognize that within themselves, really.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm,
I suppose 6 years, you mentioned that you've kind of gone from, and we've all suffered, well, maybe not all, but I think we've all had our
mm.
addictions, whether you're addicted to watching Coronation Street or whether you're addicted to alcohol or whether you're
Yeah.
addicted to your boyfriend's face, whatever it is. And of
mm,
course, the system is designed to keep us in these boxes, to keep us, addicted to whether it's something sexual or smoking or alcohol or drugs. And it's a great
mm,
escape, isn't it, from the
mhm.
realities of what we kind of, are waking up to, really, the things that we've
Yes.
suppressed, the things that
Hmm.
the shadow part of ourselves that we're reflecting that we've not wanted to look at. So, like you say, that's immense rapid growth, isn't it? 6 years to go from and I've been on the floor. We've all had our long dark nights of the soul. As I don't think we'd be having these conversations. And as painful and as I say, walking through as painful as walking
Mm,
through Hades is, it is
mm,
that phoenix from the flames, as cheesy as that sounds at the other side. But yeah, 6 years. That I mean, that certainly is rapid, isn't it? So to go
mm,
from realizing and having this awareness that you
mhm,
needed to heal yourself, and it is that wounded healer thing, isn't it? I think
mm,
if you've not got the t-shirts and the medals, then you're not really going to be able to aid and assist others on that journey either.
mm,
So that rapid growth of 6 years, I mean, to go from and I've had a few sessions with Felix, and he's brilliant. Just to watch you work
mm.
is just something to behold. Never mind,
Oh,
obviously the benefits that you get from it.
mm,
But how did you to go from like this place of addiction and knowing that you had to heal yourself like that?
mm,
How did you kind of to be able, when did you start perhaps seeing the visuals, or knowing that you had these clairaudient and to tune
mm,
into these clairvoyant and all these extra sensory interdimensional, I suppose, skill
mm.
sets, I suppose, for want of a word. How did you go? Can you tell us a little bit more about how you went from, that to be able to see that, to tune into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So since I was little, I was already kind of pretty psychic anyway. I would have
Yeah.
visions when I was young, and then growing up, it gradually kind of went away. Then when I think I was about 19 years old or maybe 20, and I was at a rave in Birmingham, and in that rave in this warehouse, um,
I blame the 90s rave scene for most things. Like
I
rock
mean,
and roll,
it's got to happen
teenage
somewhere, doesn't it? So my grandmother actually came to me in that room that I was in, and she told me that I had to leave, not knowing what it was at the time. It felt like my grandmother, if anything. And
yeah.
she told me we had to leave, something bad was going to happen. So I grabbed my friends, I was crying, we had to go. Come on, guys, we need to go now. And 15 minutes later, we got a phone call from the promoter who was dating my friend at the time, telling us that somebody was shot in the room. So the room that we were all in. So we kind of had a bit of a lucky escape, and then I was kind of a bit shaken up by that. And gradually, from that point, a bit more destructive behaviors happened, and then fast forward to about 26 years old, bam, it all came online as the initiation point of it was an initiation point of Dark Night of the Soul, but it was the descent into that. So
Yeah.
through that collapse, as the psychosis started to kick in, which is just your fields alerting you to what is needing to be looked at, it is very, very locked up consciousness within hell realms, and it is the kind of extreme paranoia that kind of runs through the kind of energy that you're after you've been doing all of these drugs and partying with crazy people for so long, you're going to have a response where these parts of your consciousness is fragmented and been locked within these states of um, chaos, really. And these are then coming back up to be seen, observed, and then cleared through. So from there, going down into the descent of Dark Night of the Soul, it elevated and got more rampant. The Kundalini kicked in. And when the body is heavily under pressure and within blockage and distortion, the Kundalini doesn't respond in a way that a natural organic Kundalini would. It comes in a very skewed, imbalanced way, which then can be quite destructive. Um, so that's kind of what happened, really. Now, coming out the other side of the dark night of the soul, because of all of this Kundalini activation and the um, slowing down from going 1,000 miles per hour, my fields were already super active, and I feel like this is going to be similar for quite a few people as well. The fields were so super active that when I would sit in meditation, I was already visualizing without trying. It was coming on really strong. Um, but I actually feel that this was a bit of an addictive hook by the light side. So to entice and engage with a possibility of something more. Um, because to build you into a direction that you're meant to be taking, they're going to kind of play something on the table until you're ready to work for it. So they'll give it you and then gradually filter it off and take it away, which then you've already had a taste of the goods, like any addict, they want more. Um, but this time it's replaced with something positive, really. And it's through that interaction where I was kind of pushed into going into expansion and going into breaking down control structures within myself and balancing moods, etc., which then progressed further into a complete development of psychic awareness. And it is
Yeah,
really that you get it and then you don't, and then you move back into getting it. It's a contraction. So you'll
yeah.
contract into birthing what it is that you are to become through that dark night of the soul. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's that kind of as above, so below kind of thing, in it, like almost like a giant heartbeat, like the universe goes gung,
Mm.
and then it kind
Yeah.
of comes back. And I suppose, like you say, you're going into it and then coming out of it, and I think as well, you hit on a good point. If you've got a bit of an addictive personality, and like I say, this kind of system
Mm.
is designed to, get us in those states really, and out of whack and not in balance and the rest of it. But when you can take, I've got a bit of an addictive personality, but when you can take that and put it into your work, into something positive, and I think it really boils back down, doesn't it, again, like those long dark nights of the soul really get you to know yourself. That's what I
Mm.
always say, even in the law work and the legal stuff. Know thyself. That's what being sovereign is really. Because obviously we've done a few controversial interviews on the main podcast, and people have gone, oh, they're this, and sending me articles that they're a shill. Or I said, well, it doesn't matter what they are. I was, he who makes the claim wears that evidence, but I know who I am, and I know I'm
Mm.
not that. We're in that duality reality.
Mm.
And it's interesting that I always laugh that we are Generation X, that we had the rave scene. We kind of we were doing the convoys, and like you say, for the highs of that, there were the lows of that as well. The inevitable come downs, and everybody up
Mm.
till 4, 5, and 6, 7 in the morning, and the sun would be coming up, and you'd be going, oh, which is actually quite a good metaphor for spiritual awakening in and of itself. If you were there first time around, the people will know what I'm talking
Mm.
about. But I think it does expand your mind, and I think we had that. Whereas you perhaps got that younger generation that are still, they're trying to get into
Mm.
transhumanism and swap the genders, and then you've got the baby boomers in front
Mm.
of us who are a bit more practical and go, oh, I'm not having that. So we're kind of
Mhm.
holding those timelines to that point, and like I think something that you do, and I just said do um is we we store this trauma in our bodies, don't we, and
Mm.
in our cells, and this is why cells are called cells. Unless we store that out, we become our own prison, don't we, and we
Mhm.
create this own prison from our minds. But of course it's all orchestrated and manipulated, and all the deceit to keep us in those lower frequencies and states.
Mm.
And I think perhaps me and you kind of bonded straight away, didn't we? We met as I was doing a talk at a spiritual firm. Felix was there, and we were like moth to a flame. I was going to say flies on shit, Felix, but it was definitely moth to a flame. And then we've kind of we've got very similar outlooks on and feeling, and the way we
Mm.
think this place works, which, without me rambling on anymore, kind of brings me into my next question. Because
Mhm.
can you tell us, everyone knows what I perhaps think of this place if they've watched some of my other videos, so enough of me, but can you tell us how how you see the nature of existence, our origins, and how you think we got to this place at this time, at this point in our galactic history? Because I know me and you, with our inner standing or understanding of galactic kind of bits and bobs, are very on the same page. So, and what do you think that means for us right now? Where do you think we are heading? Like, so I suppose what I'm asking in a less convoluted way is, where do we come from? Where are we at? And where do you think, with your skill set, where do you think we're going?
Okay, that's really interesting. I love this question. It's very vast as well. What I think, what
I
I've
know you can handle
experienced,
it.
yeah, I'm just kind of pulling information in
Feeling it.
towards this to where to kind of start. So I
Yeah.
think the initial representation of this nature of existence as an evolutionary cycle for it to become separate and then to join back together. And it is fundamentally understanding the expression of source through form and through sentience. And when we can kind of comprehend it from that perspective, we can then look at it from the perspective of a microorganism that's all playing in one particular role that has different positions in that, and they do different things. And then sometimes that microorganism might get a little bit unwell, which would then see as like the invasions, as the negative kind of structure, but it is still the same as the part. It's just they've lost touch with the identity, the true identity, or they've rejected the true identity. So there's kind of that perspective I would kind of start with, and the reasons as to how and why we have arrived where we're at the moment. I mean, this goes for eons, because the initial point I would say would stem through the Galactic wars, beginning within the Cradle of Lyra, which is where many of the starseeds would originate from. So we have three royal houses: the Royal House of Aramatina, which is my home; the Royal House of Vega, which is the Seraphi, which has been coming up recently.
Carry on.
Okay, yeah, the Royal House of Seraphi, which has been coming up recently, and then the Brahmarama race, which comes from the Royal House of the other one. I forgot the name of it now. So it's through that split of the source fields into the primal sound fields, which then becomes primal light, which births essentially the primal sound births ascended masters, is the ascended master race, and then that moves into form as primal light, sitting through 13th to 15th dimensional field, which then filters down into these royal houses, which come through 10th and 11th and 12th field. Now, through these races, these founder races, which is also a guardianship, which is also a kind of alliance that is to play roles of protection of the planet and to make sure the phantom universe, the parallel Earth, isn't kind of overrunning and destroying our organic time matrix, and many other things as well. The founder races, they then created sub-races within that. So the founder races initiated with the Anuhazi race, which is the blue cat people, the Lyrans, which then break down from the Elohai into the Anuhazi, which then go down into the Anu and etc., which then break off into like negative sub-races as the Anunnaki, and going into the Elohim, fallen Elohim actually, and then different kind of subtopics. I could go on and on about that. Seraphi, they do more of the Draco side of things. So we've got the Draco side on the Seraphi, and then within the Brahmarama race, it then filters into the Pegasus races and the dolphins and etc., etc. Yeah. So within that, these sub races then come in. One side wants to control the other. There's a whole lot of cross contamination or cross breeding, which creates more sub races, which is hybridization. And what we're currently doing within our form is learning how to heal that, to isolate these different races and energies from your own system, and then to reprogram and reconfigure, rebuild the organic 12-strand DNA template, which is the diamond sun, which is the 12-strand body. Okay.
Yeah.
So going beyond that, we've then got 24 to 48 strand DNA races, which is the Elohai. We've got the 24 to 30 strand DNA races, which is the Seraphi, and I can't remember the Brahmarama races. I just can't.
No, that's good. That
yeah.
makes sense.
So they each hold substance, and they each hold specific pathways to kind of clean and purify DNA structures and then rebuild, and then adhere to the Emerald Covenant, which is to bring the connection back to the guardians, essentially, to bring themselves back to the Emerald families. Yeah. So that's essentially what we're kind of
I love it
doing.
when you get your downloads. What is that,
Yeah.
that when you speak that language? What is that when you kind of you draw it in from that field, aren't you? When you kind of when
Yeah.
we've had our sessions, I'm always going. I love it when you do that. I'm always going,
Yeah. So
especially
that
because I'm
that
in the session.
yeah, well, it's light language. So it's one of my tools of healing, but it's also how I kind of direct energy and direct light and also pull information in. I'll be given information through light language, so it translates into English.
Yeah,
And then I can then filter that through because I get a more of an understanding. It's a more
yeah,
directive response to um, structuring the light fields.
yeah. Well, and
Mm,
like Yoda says, in it, luminous beings are we. Where our bodies,
mm,
communicate via light. It's called biophotonics, isn't it? So,
mhm,
for some people perhaps joining us at this point, I mean, I think most people who found my channel who are into what we do
mm,
are kind of on these pages, even if
mhm,
if you've just come across it and you're thinking this stuff's whack, there is a trust the science, man. There is a scientific basis to this, and we know that everything's
mm,
interdimensional. I mean, even if you want to kind of get to science, or if you want to hear it on the TV or from your government, that's what CERN is, coming from the horned god
mhm,
Senunos. They are messing about interdimensionally. We know this is a thing. I think there is going to be this fake alien invasion, but what we're talking about is our true galactic history, and that's what
mhm.
we both connect with, don't we? Which is why we
Yeah.
connect. And it's interesting, even the language, in the law of one, it'll be the one in, these two kind of factions, both in service to the one infinite creator, one being negative and one being positive. And
Mhm,
outside of
mhm.
third density, according to the law of one, you've got the Orion group, which you kind of nicely went through that kind of Draco, the
Mm.
LOI and the Anu, which then goes to the fourth, the Elohim, and the powerful ones, and the
Yeah, yeah.
Anunnaki. The Orion group
Mhm,
were they kind of messed with our DNA, and it goes back again, doesn't it, to our
mhm,
DNA, to our source code, for us
mhm,
to kind of, like you say, they've rejected their identity, they've rejected the creator, really, which is,
mhm,
like I always say, why the Pope wears that skull cap, and lots of religious figures, and the
mm.
Jewish, which is Jupiter, the Jews, they're not, Jews, but they're showing that they've cut that source off, so they need other
Mm.
energy. They need to feed on this loose suffrage energy. And like I say, we've had a chat, haven't we? Quite a few chats
Mm.
off camera. We've been here a long time, and I don't think we were
Yeah.
too. We were a little bit naughty in our galactic history, weren't we, Felix? Which is probably why we've been here so long. But without going there, but it's
Absolutely, yeah.
interesting when you
Yeah. I
when you
think,
I mean, I'm an angel, but well, what's an angel? But the House of Vega, I just wanted to ask you about that. Now, this is really interesting because when I've never had children, but I always had this I came up with this name if I ever was ever gonna have a daughter, and I was gonna call her Vega,
oh
right?
wow.
And Vega has been such a thing, and it was all I nearly took it as my stage name, like Vega Spell, like this was years ago. And I always said I realized as I got older and I didn't have children that it wasn't about me having a download of a name for a child or even myself, but that's where I think I'm from. And I
Mm.
remember I kind of like went on the web searcher of choice. Let's not mention the evildoers. But and Vega I realized was a star system, like and I just went, all right, wow. So to say when I heard you saying that one of the families was the House of Vega, I just went,
Mm.
that's me. That's where I'm from. I don't know, it just kind of hit me. All by this point, people are thinking we're little crackers, but I suppose we're starting, aren't we, to it's revealing itself now. 20 odd years ago, when I was talking about this stuff, and people
Mm.
perhaps would go, shut up, Jill, get your tinfoil hat on, you've lost the plot, yada, yada, yada. But now, it's coming into the mainstream, isn't it? It's that awakening. Do you think, I mean, I never like to use the term awakening because awake is a
Mm.
party for the dead, but I think we've all been sleepwalking, which is why the system has these references to, obviously, the dead legal
Mm.
fiction. So you are
Hmm.
in the land of the dead, and everything's about zombie movies and vampire movies, and this kind of idea that we're all, because we've all been sleepwalking, we've been the walking dead, and we're all
Mm.
starting, like you say, and that's part of the work that you do, to wake up
Hmm.
to our divine nature, isn't it? Do you
Hmm.
think that we are at this point of, let's just ascension, shall we say, or awakening? I don't like either term, but I think everyone gets where I'm going. Do you think that
Yeah.
we are there? Do you think we've come through all this galactic history in this realm to,
Mm.
yeah, ascend as a collective?
I don't think it's as a collective. I think it's actually more so on an individual level at the moment. So
Yeah,
we've done the collective thing. We did it through Lemuria, we did it through Atlantis, and now it's
yeah,
time for an individual choice point as to where we which direction we want to go to. So we've got to kind of understand it as, I personally see the previous ones as more of a descension, kind of the way the Earth moved. It was more of a descension because it went down in density down to a third dimensional field. And now
yeah,
we've hit that rock bottom point. We've now got to go up. There is no other way other than going up.
yeah.
And
Deep,
through that, yeah, the only way is up. Woo.
baby.
Uh, that one, it will just continue to move. And I think with the kind of awakening per se, different people have contracts for different times, and it all kind of comes together through their own 26,000 year progression, give or take a couple of hundred years.
Harvest cycles, they would say in
Yeah,
the law of love. Yeah, like a harvest, they call it, every 25,000 years, I think,
yeah,
or
yeah.
70.
So well, it would be 26,000 years because that's when the star sign changes. So we've just moved into the age of Aquarius, out
Yeah,
of the age of Pisces, I think it was, and that is the next harvest period where we've kind of gone through everything that we needed to learn. So now we've hit end times. We're wrapping up all of these end time agreements contractually, and then rebuilding and restabilizing to then elevate or move through regenesis.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
it's in that, isn't it? Because I call my yoga business Kali Yuga Genesis, and I didn't kind of know
mm,
why. Like the Vega thing, I think when you do start, like you say, we've all got this power, and
mm,
you aid and assist people to remember that, who we are really. Again, it goes back to that,
mm,
doesn't it? Know thyself,
mm,
and that we all have this power. I mean, I've seen some unusual things, light beings at the end of the beds, portals, falling through cubes of time, and some
mm.
some with plant medicine, some absolutely straight as a judge.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
shouldn't say judge, but
I was about to say
but
that one.
yeah,
Maybe not a
yeah,
judge is a good reference
but,
there.
yeah. And yeah, I mean, and our ancient history, we know that our history has been, hidden from us because, again,
Hmm.
how do we heal from a past, as I always say, because this is something
Mm,
Laura Eisenhower, and again, it's always stuck with me when we don't know what it is. So, people, like yourself who are bringing this forward, and the work we all do, and some of the people that we say, the space holders that are coming in that collaborative
mm,
capacity in the platform to kind of resource people. That's what I've said. Dark matters is
mhm, mhm,
it's to resource you back to
mhm,
source, really.
mhm,
But so if I was say, we've all kind of, and some people are struggling out there. I mean, we know this is kind of it has to get dark before the dawn, doesn't it? So if somebody was
mhm,
going to come to you and their mental health was at a low, or what kind of, if I was just coming to have a consultation with you, how what kind of things would you do? If people are kind of thinking, well, what could he do for me? How would he help me? What kind of, just to give people a bit of a flavor of what you do on a
mm.
kind of one-to-one kind of client basis as well.
Okay, so if I had a one-to-one client base, um, or a one-to-one session, it would be primarily scanning the fields first and then going in to start identifying the most impactful traumas that are kind of running through your field at the time. What is the most important? I normally ask the question, what is the most impactful thing that's going on for Kali Spell at the moment? And then through that, all of the downloads starts to come in, and then we work through it there and then. Um, that is normally like kind of the best results that we go for. I always jam pack it full of intentions as well, and get them to kind of bring intentions in for what they want to achieve. Um, For rapid transformation, we always go for contract removal. So
We did
breaking
quite a bit of that with
contracts.
me, didn't we?
I do it on a daily
Get rid
basis
of
with
that.
myself as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
It's all contract, baby. That's all it is.
yeah, there's so many, and they're with all of these different sub races and agreements, and why are you holding depression fields within you? What are you not wanting to look at? Why have you
Yeah,
covenanted yourself not to review certain information? And really, what it is to unpack the memories of the history, to allow that flow of energy to move through. So once we've kind of got the root understanding, then we look at it from a creation perspective, then we look at it from an intention perspective, and then start
yeah,
to bleed it together. Where does it sit within the galactic history? What about the past life history and how it plays out in current life? We can then kind of draw a conclusion to collapse it all out and restructure.
yeah,
Now,
yeah. It
yeah,
is. It is powerful. I've certainly after our last session, just speaking on a personal level, I
mm,
found, I kind of went into one that evening. I was very, because it is a very deep, even if you take it just on a counseling level, like to kind of, it takes courage
mm,
and being bold to kind of come and sit with and do this work. That's the inner
mhm,
work, and it's not easy, the shadow work, and
no,
you kind of, I think it kind of for you to kind of look, especially like you kind of you localize traumas, say, and then the traumas you've had in this life, but then also to realize a lot of the
mm,
things that you're carrying and a lot of things that you're feeling are from
mm,
past lives and past traumas and like I say past contracts. And so
mm,
you kind of you may be in this kind of funk or depression, or we know it's
mm,
about our heads can get stuck in these in these neural pathways. We start thinking like something, we
mhm.
become it, don't we? Because I think therefore I am, etc. But
Yeah.
yeah, I find that very powerful to kind of, especially some of the people that come in and out of our lives, that they've been coming in and out of our lives doing the same thing over and over again for very long times,
Mm,
and to be able to kind of look at that and heal that. And for you, like I've always said, and I don't mind, being open. I'm open as a book, really. But I've been on
mm,
the floor a few times this last year. I don't mind saying it. And you kind of physically kind of, or you kind of tuned into that in that kind of quantum level
mm,
and helped me pick myself. As you made me visualize me picking myself back up.
mm,
And it was a really powerful thing, and it stayed with me that evening. And
mm.
I was kind of like, I
Oh.
even watched a girly film. I decided because you said like I have to kind of, not that watching Sex in the City like is really connected with your phone inside, but I just decided I'm just something dead light-hearted on and just shut my brain
Yeah.
off. Anyway, it's when big leaves carry at the altar, isn't it? Oh well, that way. I were
Mm,
crying my eyes out, and it does help you kind of to integrate these splintered
mm,
parts of yourself, but also just to take another deep look at yourself and see what it is that, well, and you're doing it on a level that I do comprehend, but with the
mm,
work that you do, it's something very different. But yeah,
mm,
it's very powerful. Most
absolutely.
definitely. But yeah, if you've got me in tears in the evening, it must be like,
I had no idea, to be honest. I was like,
yeah, well,
wow,
I
that,
meant
that,
I was going to text you at the time, but then I thought, no, I'll leave it because I was letting it. You've got to kind of let those things
yeah, be
like
within
flow
it.
out of you,
Yeah.
haven't you? And you
Mhm.
got to kind of integrate it and let it go yourself and that. And I was going to mention it to you, obviously, when
Yeah.
we kind of did another session, but yeah, it's kind of. Yeah, it's very powerful. I mean, it's very
Mm,
powerful just to look at yourself anyway, but to
mm,
to be able to kind of have your
mhm,
guidance and talk about these past existences and contracts and again
mm,
where you're from potentially and what you've done in your galactic history. It's like,
mhm.
yeah, it's
Absolutely.
super duper.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Then it's just so
Oh
wonderful that
no,
you've
no.
just picked that up within the galactic history, because I think it's important to raise as well. We've got so many aspects. I think it's something like 1,728 aspects that are kind of floating around up there, and it all goes on like a mathematical basis as well. So we've got all these parts that are either within a positive polarity, a negative polarity, or a kind of somewhere in between. And knowing that we've got these parts that are kind of playing out a certain storyline that is done through a creation perspective, linked into the divine plan, linked into that creation, we're then able to kind of neutralize into what our history has been like and know that it's not true us at the core, whether it's negative, whether it's positive. As long
Yeah,
as it's aligned to love, that's your truth. And when you can kind of bring these other parts back in by connecting to them, whether they're stuck within a Draco system or within an Orion system or within a fallen race of the Necromaton beetle people, you can then expand love through your heart and then re-engage with yourself that way, breaking down the habitual structures that you're kind of running through your own system. And I
Yeah,
think that's the core of it, is when we can kind of neutralize to all of these different parts and just connect with them and allow the love to
yeah,
move back through them, they can then come back in. And that's what we're doing with this ascension as well, is we're rebuilding these parts. So when we heal a part of the fallen structure, it will then trigger a clearing within the light body, which then allows the architecture to raise, and we all come back into a much more potent standpoint of bliss charged love, really. And that's kind of
yeah.
what we're aiming to do. So yeah, yeah.
Bliss charged love. I think we should have that as the tagline for the video. I think we can't say any
Brilliant.
more than that. It's but yeah, and
Yeah.
again, I mean, I find it fascinating. And series two of Dark Matters is going to be really deep dive in our origins, and
Mm,
again, this kind of Orion, Anunnaki, fallen angel, Watcher, Nephilim,
mm,
giants. All these stories, Atlantis, Tartaria, all this stuff, because I find, like, I also state, if again, if people are aware of me rambling on and doing what I do over here, but it's narratives, and I think I've got a really special guest to open up the second series, who's basically going to go, it's all stories. Whatever they're going to tell you, it's stories, and that's going to be fascinating. But I like how you
mm,
talk about this kind of, these Draco seals or these Anunnaki seals
mm,
that have been placed, to cap our DNA and our potential,
mm.
and to limit, like you said, that our light
Yeah.
bodies, and that evolution of our light bodies. And I'm using your language here, so this it fits in obviously with all our ancient myths,
Mm,
stories, and these cultural, or these stories that have been told culturally differently,
mm,
but in essence is all the same story, and story and characters and acts and theatre and resets, and like you say, in the law of one, and we talked about it briefly with Johnny and Ant yesterday, Ra, it's channeled material, and he says,
mm,
can everybody ascend at once? Well, it's possible, but it's not probable, which goes to what you were saying about how, we know it's that individual journey. We know that,
mm,
we've got to kind of, I think this stuff comes, doesn't it? It comes, as it says in the law of one, through the roots to the trunk and then to the tree of the mind. And I think when
mm,
when it's blossoming in the tree of the mind, then there's that,
mm,
you're starting to get the wisdom of it, and you are starting to kind of, yeah, like clear your light body and vibrate at that higher frequency, which then obviously, is going to attract, you know you're clearing out your cupboards, aren't you? Basically, I think, in a simple way, Felix is coming helping you clear out your galactic cupboard. Maybe we should have that as the tagline.
We
Maybe
can do.
not.
Whatever you feel, whatever you feel.
So yeah, I think, the work that you do will, ties in beautifully with the kind of where we're going to go on the podcast. And I think
Mm,
that's all we can do whilst we're here, isn't it? It's, because we can't control what's out there, but what we
mm,
can do is we can work on ourselves. The answers,
yeah,
cheesily really are truly within, aren't they?
absolutely. Yeah.
So for the what's your goals and your kind of missions and incentives for this next? I mean, we're moving into 2024 again, contentious whether you believe it's the Gregorian
Mm,
calendar or the true New Year's on April 1st.
mm.
What do you think? I mean, we touched on it briefly when I asked you earlier, but what do you think this year's perhaps? I'm no astrologer and I find it fascinating, but where do you think that this year's going to see? Have you got any predictions? People
Um,
want to know, don't they? It's like, oh God, just tell me what's going to happen.
they do want
Um,
to know, absolutely. I mean, we're already kind of being shown directly what's going to happen this year through the
Pretty
UK
much.
government and the US government deciding to do that, what they did
Yeah,
last night. I
yeah.
think
What did you do
within
last night? What have I missed?
they
All
have
the
dialed
weird
up
stuff.
war within Yemen. So yeah, yeah. So they're pushing for the World War Three thingy at the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, yeah.
And
And
I think what's going to happen this year is we're going to see a seismic change. I think we're going to it's almost feels like we're at the forefront of the battle now, where
Yeah,
you can't not face it. So people are being pushed into choice points where they're having to kind of make choices as to what is best for everyone. It's a real decision making time and learning how to make decisions. So that being said, I think we, yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing with it so far. Yeah, no, no, I'm not sure sort of called it. No, you're good in there. I feel like this year is going to be the rise of connection, a much stronger unity bond within the collective field without the powers that be, but on a physical level. People are going to start putting down the gauntlets and realizing, oh, SHIT, we're up shit creek, but I've just said it. We're up shit creek without a paddle, as the ones who aren't as engaged as the rest of us are within what we know. You know, these people are going to kind of step up and kind of take a stand. I think we're already seeing that with a lot of the German tractor people driving their tractors all over
yeah, I
Germany.
saw that.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I think the people are going to really step up and kind of put a stop to a lot of these things. Um, so yeah, I think we're at that point now where it's time to kind of buckle down and kind of service work is the primary really, and that is to kind of make sure everyone is safe and secure in themselves. So that's what I feel is kind of going on. There's a couple of other things as well that aren't 100% clear to me yet, but I feel financially we're going to see big changes coming this year.
yeah,
I really do feel that one. I
yeah.
also think we're
Completely
going to,
feel that.
yeah, I also think that we're going to start seeing more grassroots companies, not companies, but like gatherings that are going to be sourcing out like homegrown food as a resource
Yeah,
for the community. So it's pushing the groups of people within the neighborhoods to start coming together and creating hubs of
yeah,
giving. To one doesn't go without the other. I feel like the people are going to start coming together more. They put the differences aside, and it's a case of kind of sharing the wealth, really. But okay, so on top of that, what I'm also seeing now is that there will be kind of care packages coming in and support packages. I feel this is towards later in the year. I don't know whether this is the UK or the US or other countries. It feels like it could be coming in multiple domains, actually. Um, like care packages coming in, not sure how that's sitting at the moment. In a case of kind of bringing support and stability to these groups. Um,
I think, yeah, I was saying,
mm,
like, I think this shadow side starts to reveal itself, and also in the kind of movement. And
mm,
we were discussing this on the video yesterday with Ant and Johnny. You know, this kind of backstabbing, bitching, biting. You know, it's kind of we've got to start really kind of working grassroots up with each
mm,
other. Everyone can paddle their own canoe, which is like what I say at Dark Matters. You know, the hosts and our awesome space holders.
mm,
You know, that's their space, and we're just the gateway and the doorway to this
mm,
platform, Dark Matters. But people can make their choices, haven't they? People have got that choice that they have to make. And because the shadow side is revealing itself, and like we've always said, like evil or darkness is something outside of ourselves, and in this kind of illusion or matrix or hologram or
mm,
whatever, of course there is this light dark, there's that polarity. But the
mm,
we are the Holy Grail. We this the journey is ours, isn't it? That's the last
mm,
crusade. Looking for the chalice. We are the chalice. We are the
mm,
cup that we need to fill. And
mm,
it certainly is like. I want to create, we are creating at the moment this dark matters directory for exactly that, to
Mhm.
link into, organic, food producers, even
Mhm.
to, awake festivals, events. Dark matter is
Mhm.
going to be putting events on, but we're going to also, there's so much on the ground that's happening. We can get bogged down with like hearing about, what the dark are doing and what they're going to do and Agenda
Yeah.
2030, blah, 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 blah. And that's part of them trying to hijack our consciousness so they can create it.
Mhm.
But I've had the privilege of going up and down the country for, the last however many years. And there's
Mhm.
loads of stuff. There's, people are homeschooling, there's forestry schools, we're taking our sons and daughters, and things are changing,
Mhm.
things are shifting, and that they can't stop that. And like you say about the farmers, the farmers really are the last free people, because if we can grow our own food, we
Mhm.
can learn to, use technology to free us and build shelters and work together. We don't have to be in each other's pockets, and we don't all have to agree, but just to have a common goal, in authenticity and love, and not the 5D authenticity where it's like, I'm being my authentic self, which means you're being an arsehole most of the time. But yeah, definitely that. And I see that, like we've got this awareness of the crap they're spraying on our food, in the air, in
Mhm.
our clothing and everything, just to keep us sick and keep us stupid. And it goes back to the work that you do with, the Orion
Mhm.
or the Draco Anunnaki capping of our DNA. We
Mhm.
know that they've capped they're called the telomere caps, aren't they? Where we used to live a
Mhm.
lot longer, but they
Yeah.
capped us because hang on, they're getting a bit smart. They're waking up to the game here, and they also found a worship gene. We've been
Mhm.
injected, or our DNA has been manipulated to so that we literally worship things outside of ourselves, like it's actually something, some weird program that's been kind of,
Mhm.
we've been genetically manipulated to do that shit, as I say.
Mhm. Oh,
So yeah, like you
absolutely.
say, it's coming from the ground up in it, and that's the thing that we can kind of
Mhm.
trust in and have faith in, I think.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. What I'd love to add on to that as well, you've just summed that up so perfectly, is the technology that's also been used off planet as well, which has been used to dumb down
Yeah,
the mind. And so, in times, it can be quite hard to think. It can be quite hard to kind of get the energy to move out of the kind of to move out of like a dumbing down kind of sensation. And it's these kind of reversal grids that are playing out now. When we look at planets like Nibiru, this is where a lot of this technology is stemmed from. And within the awareness of this, we can then learn how to traverse it, how we can kind of identify it playing out within our own bodies by scanning the field and seeing how our energy is reacting and responding, because it becomes so unconscious to us that we just take it as the norm, and it becomes so hard to break out of at times that
yeah,
we just give up. And that's exactly what they want. So when we can kind of come objectively and question, is this really mine? Is this an organic frequency? Is this
yeah.
kind of aligned to source light and source intelligence? When we get the answers or the responses as no, if it doesn't feel light and bubbly, I can guarantee you it's probably not aligned to love and light or aligned to the source field.
Yeah.
And through that, we're then able to kind of allow it to break away from us.
So yeah, I was going to ask you, when you do your work, obviously
Mhm.
I've had one-to-ones, as we've said, and does it take a lot of energy from you, or is it something that gives you energy, or is it, do you feel quite drained because you give a lot out when you're doing what you do, or is it a bit of both? How does that kind of affect you after a session?
Mm, I mean, it's really dependent on what's going on with the client, what's going on collectively, and what's catalyzed me recently into looking at specific things. So sometimes I can be so full of energy afterwards that I can't even sleep. It's depending on what kind of healing modality comes through. If it's more holographic structuring, then the channels will open up in a very different way, and pylons will kind of engage and energize my field as well as yours or the clients. If they're going through an extensive amount of trauma, their fields might be more locked up. So I have to work harder to actually unlock their history and unlock their field. So that takes a fair bit of energy. But once we've kind of got that stage done, everything becomes a lot easier, which then makes it more related. So prior to actually working with them, I'll normally download a lot of their information into my field. about anything up to about 4 hours, if not the night before. I can be sat with their stuff in my field and having to kind of understand it and work through it as a preemptive before even starting the session. So that can be more tiring, but once it's starting to unlock, it just gets lighter and lighter and lighter. Then if we've got collective interference or collective happenings like bombings or war, or this kind of topic, or natural or unnatural disasters, then that can also interfere. So if there's a big collective trauma going on that day, then we're kind of like stuck. Or if I have been triggered into a certain phase of galactic history that's brought on a lot of hybridization stuff, then we're really fucked. Then I really need to kind of sit back and just kind of allow that to unfold before working. So yeah, like the Serify, not lesser races, but their creation of races, sub races beneath them, that's come up recently over the past like 4 or 5 days. And that's been a lot to kind of deal with and process at the moment. So this seems to be something along the hybridization side of it, but also to do with the creation of worlds and creation of races. So we're kind of at a juncture of having to deal with a lot of these different things from that royal house line and clearing through that. So that takes a lot of energy because it's really deep DNA cleansing and isolating of your energy through theirs as well. So yeah.
Yeah. But any last words from you, Felix? Like I say, I'm super excited that you're coming into the network, and obviously people can come and find you there. But is there any last words you kind of wanted to say on our chat today? It's been awesome chatting with you. I've really
lovely.
enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
it's been so much fun. I've really, really enjoyed it too. Thank you so much. It's been great actually meeting you as well. I was just the show that we went to, it felt like I was there specifically to meet you. After I kind of recapped it. It's so bizarre. Yeah, it really was. No, it was fab. I loved it. It was great. I had a really nice time. But yeah, I think we've kind of got everything on the table now. I feel for people that are listening and watching, really focus on building your light this year. Really focus on sitting down in meditation with the intention to build your light. Because as you start to bring in that charge and elevate your light fields, the potency of your creative potential is going to amplify 1,000-fold. And I think that's really what we want to be working together as a triune is to create this pillar of peace across the globe. This is what we are here for this year, is to hold the fields together in solidarity. And I think that's when we've kind of grasped that, we're really kind of working in a state of unified flow. And that's what I would love to share with you all today. And if you do feel like coming to see me, then obviously you can find me through Kali's website, and also through my own. I've got a YouTube channel with loads of free healing on there if you're out of pocket. I do maybe 3 healings a month on YouTube, sometimes 4, which then it just runs with the collective field as to what's needed for the time. And they're very, very good fun. So yeah, thank you so much. I really, really love this.
Awesome. What a beautiful sentiment to finish on. So thank you everybody for watching. I've been Kali, this has been Felix, and we'll hopefully see you in Dark Matters. Thanks very much.
Thank you.